right, this is the Painesville Township Board of Zoning Appeals. We're gonna call the meeting to order, and as we do always, we ask that people stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rachel, if you call the roll of the board, please.
Okay, Dave Lindros,
Here.
Dale Lewis,
Here.
and Chairman.
Here, let the record show that we do have a quorum this evening. And I'm going to let our legal director talk to the people that are going to testify tonight and explain why she would need to swear you if you do come up and testify.
Anybody who comes up and speaks to the board will need to get sworn in because anything you say could be used in court proceedings further down the line. So we need to make sure that you're swearing or affirming to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I will ask you to identify yourself by first and last name and address.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, the applicant is not here for case 001 BZA. I don't know how the board feels. This is the second time he hasn't showed up.
Yeah, and the first time was a request on his part because he couldn't find coverage for his store and he had to work the store during those hours. This is his first no call, no show.
Okay, well, in my book, this is twice. I don't know how the board feels. Someone wants to make a motion to continue it or to deny it. You know, actually, you can't deny. You have to make a positive motion, and then we vote on it. So, being chairman, I cannot make a motion. So, we don't need to read this, do we? Since he's not here.
No.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue case number 2024-001.
Okay. Second. Yeah, you're the only guy.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Rachel.
Okay, Dave Lindros,
Yes.
Dale,
No.
and Chairman.
I'm going to be generous and say yes. Okay. So it is continued. One more time. All right. Now, if you would read 11 or 20 BZA 05. No, that's 20. That's the old one. Hold on.
2024.
I got it right. I've got it here. Yeah. 2024-004 BZA.
Applicant Dave Rentals LLC submitted a variance application for property located at 500 Park Road. The request is to permit the current utilization of property zone R1 to be used as a landscape company headquarters in violation of section 14.01, which requires that the uses permitted in the R1 zoning district shall be limited to single-family detached dwellings or public service facility operated by or on the behalf of the Board of Trustees of Painesville Township.
Okay, I find no error in our zoning inspector requiring a variance for this. This time, is there someone to speak in favor of the request?
Thank you. May it please the board, my name is Brandon Dines. I'm the attorney for DAV Rentals. I shouldn't have messed with that.
Mr. Dines, can I swear you in?
You can, Ms. Wertz. I think as an officer of the court, I'm not required to be sworn in.
Probably not, but I'd like to just
If
for
you'd
the
like
record.
to, regardless, yes. I solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under
Thank
penalties
you.
of perjury. Thank you. Ron Graham and I had that discussion once. He was.
I think you might be right, but I'd rather it be
It's
clear.
fine. No problem. And thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. I was a member of the Concord Township Board of Zoning Appeals for about 15 years before I became their law director. So I guess I appreciate what you do in those chairs, and I know it's not always an easy task. I enjoyed it, and I sometimes miss it. But then again, I also enjoy doing this. So thank you for your time and your attention. I'll try to be brief. I think that's important. Certainly, Ms. DeLeon has been very helpful, and here we are before you today relative to the property on Park Road, which I'm sure you're all familiar. Mr. Davlin purchased the property in January 2020. As you probably all know, it's been a nursery for many, many years, dating back, I think, in the 70s. I was born and raised on Paradise Road, and around the corner I had a lot of friends on Park Road, so I've driven by that place since I was a child. at least dating back to 1971, and my recollection to that time anyway, is it's always been in the same condition along with all the others in the area. But at any rate, I digress, and I don't mean to. But currently, it's an agricultural use as it's provided for, as is listed on the auditor's site, and as it's being used. As you're well aware, Ohio Revised Code Section 519.01 provides that agriculture includes farming, nursery stock, ornamental shrubs, ornamental trees, flowers, sod, timber, etc. It also allows for processing, drying, storage, and marketing of agricultural products. If you've seen the property, you've seen the photos, which are before you, there is no home on the property, although it's R1, and as you're all familiar with Park Road and Bohall, although those roads are all in the zoning classification of R1, there are many nurseries, agricultural uses, and other businesses as well. This is no different. There are polyhouses, there's a barn, there's a Quonset hut, and it is in fact accurate that Mr. Davlin operates as a grower, cultivator, and other nursery products. He does in fact use equipment for the nursery, and some of that equipment is part and parcel of his landscape business. His landscape business is Perfect Touch, which is domiciled in Mentor, Ohio, as is evident by the Secretary of State and all business filings therewith, and a part there too. His business operation, headquartered in Mentor for Perfect Touch, does in fact help with the nursery, help with the product. There's trailers, there's trucks, there's delivery, there's equipment there that all is sourced and brought to that location on Park Road and then taken elsewhere, whether it's sold as a nursery product to a developer, a homeowner, anybody who may be, and then the product is moved there accordingly. As you might suspect, when we talk about unnecessary hardships and seeking use variances and otherwise, there are great costs and expenses with this and with the maintenance of the equipment and keeping it at separate places. So a lot of this stuff is in fact used as part of the nursery operation and on Park Road. I will make note that he used to have a lawn mowing business that has been sold and is no longer part of his landscape operation and no longer a part of any equipment there at the Park Road facility. So furthermore, I think when you drive up and down Park Road, or Bohall Road for that matter, we see many businesses, many similar situated entities, be it nurseries or otherwise, that have a lot of equipment. They have trailers, they have Quonset huts, they have polyhouses, they have all the similar things. And I think that it's notable that all those are R1. Every single one of them is an R1 district classification. I noted in your packet, and I find it interesting, and Ms. Wertz might have thoughts on this as well, that I think there was a statement by someone that in fact the proper solution would be a district reclassification. I'm sure as you're all familiar, spot zoning is not really not something that anybody wants in any township or on any level, so I don't think that's the appropriate forum. We do have an appropriate remedy, which is a use variance for which the purposes we are here tonight. Speaking of your packet, there's a couple cases in there, Gabanik versus Apanius. That case has been distinguished by Siebenthaler versus Beaver Creek in 2009. And in fact, that provided landscaping services are offered for purposes of marketing, products cultivated on the property, and incident to the agricultural use. A lot of that is similar here. So I would argue that the Gabanik case doesn't necessarily apply to the facts at hand or the circumstances with DAV and Mr. Davlin. You've also got a case in your packet, Petiti versus Plain Township. That's distinguished because the owner of the property there, Angelo Petiti, former client of mine in fact, has a landscape company, strictly a landscape company. The articles of organization for which the property is owned indicate that it is solely and strictly a landscape organization and company, and the purpose solely and strictly for landscaping. Additionally, what brought Petiti before the board and some concern was that his building itself did not comport with the zoning regulations and in fact was in violation. So I think both of those are distinguished, and I think it's important to note for any Board of Zoning Appeals, and by no means am I telling you your business, you all are well qualified to know this. The great thing about Boards of Zoning Appeals is you have the authority to make decisions that may not always comport with case law. You're not required to follow that. You've got a little bit of administrative power to do things differently for the benefit of the residents, for the township, and otherwise as you feel and see fit. And earlier I heard Ms. DeLeon talking with Ms. Wertz about the Duncan factors. Everybody loves the Duncan factors, right? We all know Middlefield versus Duncan, whether it's area variance, use variance, whatever it is, and we cite those things and we talk about them to the extent they're persuasive, to the extent they govern, to the extent they're in any way, shape, or form relative to the matter at hand. And I think this matter certainly requires a recitation of those and understanding of those factors and how they apply to the property at issue on Park Road. I would submit to you that it is, in fact, an unnecessary hardship to not grant the use variance. As stated, the equipment that's there and those facilities that are there support the agricultural and nursery operations, and as such, the sale of those, the marketing of those, there is a bit of a dual purpose, clearly, and that's not something that anyone's here to tell you otherwise. But in fact, the hardship would be to have two locations, to have multiple pieces of equipment, trailers, and other implements by which to not only cultivate, but then transfer, sell, and dispose of nursery product as it may be, becomes a bit of a hardship. Additionally, we do have a property that is in fact zoned agricultural, and as we know from that area, there are many agricultural uses, and all of those uses, whether they're their equipment, their tractors, their trailers, whatever it might be, whether it's enclosed or it's not enclosed, they are in fact very similar. And I think that's something that oftentimes, in looking at the strict application of the zoning text, a lot of times we lose sight of what is appropriate in a district, what's beneficial, and what may be something that is permitted. And if that permission is granted for 5 years or to run with the land, whatever that might be, I think it's worth considering. Additionally, we talk about whether the property can in fact be used for any other permitted use. Permitted uses are agricultural and residential. There is no home, there is no residence on that property, along with some of the others in that R1 district on Park Road, as well as on Bohall. And again, as we know, it's an agricultural use, which is allowable. There is unique circumstances particular to the property, and further looking at some of the factors and setting those as to what's applicable here. It's always been a nursery. It's always had a barn. It's had a Quonset hut, the poly houses, and it's been used accordingly. I think some of the photos you can see some of the potted plants and plant material that's there. And with that, of course, we all know that nurseries need equipment, trailers, vehicles, and other stock along and upon that premises, as is present there on Park Road. When we talk about whether the essential character of the neighborhood will be substantially altered or any adjoining properties would suffer any substantial detriment, again, the term there is substantial. And I would argue and submit to all of you that there is no substantial alteration and there is no substantial detriment whatsoever. In fact, you've got letters from some of the neighbors indicating they have no objection to this. And again, as I stated, we could take some examples, for instance, and this is out of the township, I understand, but for instance, Bremick Gardens in Concord is at the corner of Girdle and Ravenna. Very similar operation. They've got nursery product, they've got trees, they've got mulch, they've got timber, they've got vehicles and things that are used for that. And they also, in fact, engage in some landscaping and marketing and selling of landscape services. We also have on Park Road, not far from Mr. Davlin, Bending Branches Tree Service, American Pride Tree Service, Penn Ohio Nurseries, First Class Construction, and Dave Demore Nursery Sales. Dave Demore, in fact, has equipment and trailers on his premises as well. And then if we go over to Bohall, very similar situated. We've got Stropke, Catillas, Lactose. I think T-Bar is still over there. And again, I think it's important to look at the overall premises, the property, the neighborhood, and the environment, and understand that allowing this use variance maintains some consistency with what is also present on those properties. I understand from the packet that there was a complaint made to a trustee. I'm not discrediting that. We don't have any evidence. I don't know what that complaint was, or if it was noise or anything else. But I would submit to you, by virtue of the letters in your packet that we have from the neighbors, there's no noise complaints. There haven't been any issues with that we are aware of. If there's something in that can be addressed, we'd be more than happy to address that accordingly. Again, continuing on some of the factors, we ask if the problem is self-created. This was a nursery parcel that was purchased knowing it was a nursery parcel. Don't believe it was self-created. The implements there are part and parcel of that nursery and agricultural operation, and facilitating that forward and supporting those operations accordingly. There is no effect on governmental services. As we know, it doesn't impede or in any way deter fire, police, or otherwise. In fact, Mr. Davlin purchased the property with the knowledge. He did speak with Mr. Constantine at the time. You have a letter indicating their positions there. And again, whether there are any other methods to resolve this, I don't think that a reclassification of the entire district is appropriate. I I don't know that Mr. Davlin would be the proper vehicle to do that, along with all the other folks there. Maybe they could get together, and maybe that is something to consider. But I would submit to you the reason we're here and the reason the Board of Zoning Appeals exists in the state of Ohio, and especially for townships, is to allow for the consideration of use variances. And this is, it really, by my estimation, is in fact our best remedy to provide for that for residents. And further, the granting of the variance that we hope you will grant and consider aligns with the area, certainly preserves the spirit of the zoning text. I don't see that it violates that in any fashion. It's not, oftentimes, use variances. We had folks wanted to put an asphalt plant in once, and, everybody, their hair was on fire because that was just the most egregious thing in the world. And I think that's an important consideration in use variances. What is it? We get concerned about asphalt plants, we get concerned about adult bookstores, we get concerned about these things that might otherwise appeal to the prurient interest or be something that is volatile of the nature of the neighborhood and the community itself. And I don't think that applies here, given the nature of Painesville Township as a whole. And in closing, and trying to be brief, I think it is, in fact, without a doubt, that by granting of this use variance, substantial justice will and can be done by granting it. I don't think that there's any suggestion otherwise by anyone. I don't know who else may speak if they're speaking against it, but I don't see that there's any reason that would apply otherwise. And so with that, thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions you may have for me or Mr. Davlin, who's here, of course. And we would ask that you would approve the use variance as provided. Thank you.
Any questions?
Briefly, you said he's been in business for 4 years. Has he sold any? Does he have record of sales for horticultural, or is this just something that's going to happen after they grow for a while?
Well, I assume you've sold some of the horticulture. Would you like to come up and be sworn in?
We're going to ask you to be sworn, sir.
Okay.
Mandy?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was reading. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to this board?
I do.
Can you state your name and address, please?
My name is Robert Davlin, and I live in Mentor, and it's 6891 Sutherland Court in Mentor, Ohio.
Mr. Davlin, the question was posed to you as to whether or not you have sales records of nursery stock being sold from that premises.
Yes, we grow some nursery stock at this point, and it's getting bigger each year. And we also buy in and sell nursery stock purchased from other people, other nurseries in the area. And we
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're looking at agricultural use of this property, so buying and selling others really isn't agricultural use of the property. So what I'm asking is, what you've planted and grown, have you sold anything?
well, it's limited now because it takes a while to grow things.
Yeah, I understand, but 4 years you should be showing some sales by now.
Yes, we are planning to continue on the business with ground cover type of products, and we did sell some cannas, which are multiplying, and we sell cannas each year. And then we had some arborvitaes that we grew on and sold the arborvitaes, which that will be another product that we will kind of specialize in.
So you have record of sales. I had another question on these two neighbors that have commented. It says that at 484 Park is owned by Mr. Pike, but it looks like somebody else's signature here, and I'm not sure what that is. Is there somebody else that
I believe
lives there?
she's a tenant, is my understanding.
She lives there?
That's my understanding.
Because I thought you said that there were no residences neighboring this property. That it was
I
all
don't think I
commercial.
represented that. No, there's a residence next door. It's got some Merit excavating equipment there, which is to the south, and to the north is a residence.
So there's residences. Now, Mr. Sparger at 510, he's here. Okay. And this is your comments.
I don't remember reading comments.
You signed your name to this.
I put my name on this.
Okay. You didn't write it?
I didn't write.
Okay. Any other questions right now?
Well, I had a question regarding the residents. I understand that originally you were gonna put a live-in quarters at the location, correct?
Right. And that was gonna be our offices, but because of COVID, we were, delayed, both, through the process. And I had plans for it, but we have not decided to go on, until sometime in the future.
Well, I was reading the letter that Mr. Constantine sent, and it was pretty specific as to what could be done and what couldn't. And it said that a landscape service company is more typically regarded as strictly a commercial industrial type of business activity, as opposed to the agricultural use is what. And I guess that's where the problem, the conflict is coming.
Yeah, if I may, I think it's important to note, for instance, the agricultural use as it is, as you probably know, Mr. Lewis, a lot of the nurseries, in fact, aren't potting into the ground anymore. They're potted plants in polyhouses and things. Matter of fact, the largest in the area, Cottage Gardens, is a client of mine. They are strictly all in containers and containerized product in polyhouses. Now, they're not in Painesville Township. They're in Perry and in Madison. But that ag use provides for it does not have to be cultivated within the ground and grown in the ground. But that agricultural use and getting the CAUV and some of those exemptions apply to potted plants and things as well, whether they're in polyhouses or otherwise.
All right, I have a quick question to our zoning inspector. Are we still looking at the difference between commercial and agricultural, or are we just looking at the variance that he is requesting?
The variance that he is requesting, there.
He wants a landscape company headquarters.
If there was an application to appeal my interpretation of the situation in regards to whether or not it was agricultural, that would be the brunt of the conversation today. But they applied for a use variance.
So we're not even talking about whether it's agricultural or commercial at this point.
Yes. We're considering the use variance application for the landscape company.
Okay.
The commercial aspect.
And to be clear on that, it's not necessarily to harbor and keep a landscape company in its full operation there. It's really to allow for the storage of trailers and equipment that support both the nursery operation and the landscape company.
Okay.
So it's not, the landscape company, as I mentioned, and I could show you the Secretary of State and otherwise, the Articles of Incorporation, the landscape company is in fact headquartered on Sutherland Drive in Mentor, Ohio.
In addition to the storage of equipment, Mr. Davlin is also producing and selling mulch on the site, bringing timber from off-site onto the site, mulching it and selling it, which would be a commercial use, not an agriculturally exempt use. So that use is in question. The storage of plants purchased from other entities to phase for installation as part of the landscape company. The storage of the pavers and other materials. The storage of old decking material from decks that were demolished off-site, then brought onto site for storage. All of those things are part of that commercial component. That's why we have a violation case currently, are all of those things, not simply the storage of equipment.
Okay, I would like, being chairman, I want to just, I've got a little order I'd like to go here. First of all, Mr. Lewis addressed the one thing. We granted you a variance back in 2020 to make a 2-bedroom residential. You were asking to make that building in the back a 2-bedroom residential building where you would have your office and somebody would reside there. And up till now, 0 has been done. COVID's come and gone. It's come and gone for a lot of things, and people have moved on. I've got a picture here from 2020 that you submitted with that building back there and a pretty pristine lot just to the south of it. That lot now is disgraceful. It's absolutely, you said there were Mr. Dines, you said there was nothing substantial that was been done. In my mind, that's more than substantial what's on that piece of property right now. And if I lived there, I would be raising holy hell.
There's two neighbors and the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I was suggesting is that when we look at the factors, whether it's been substantially altered in any fashion given the character of the neighborhood and its environment.
And I think it's altered it tremendously.
Mr. Hill, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think when we drive up and down Park Road, we find many of those similarly situated properties.
I'm not talking about the rest of Park Road. I'm looking at the piece of property that we are making a judgment.
I'm only saying if it's a substantial alteration given the district in the area.
I apologize. I did want to add, and this is speculation, but I was unaware that the previous property owner at 510 had sold his home. He was one of our main complainants, and I have
He's got the same first name as this gentleman,
I
right?
have email after email of his concerns, which were not submitted in the application packets, but I definitely think that it should be his. I would not be surprised if, again, speculation, he moved due to the uses next door. But
Okay,
With all due respect, I know this is an administrative hearing, but I'd object to that. We've not been privy to any of that information. I think that's somewhat, I appreciate speculation, and Ms. Wertz, I mean,
all right, I understand that, but at this time, I questioned the applicant about his previous variance that we granted him, and nothing was done other than make the lot next to it look terrible in 4 years. And what I would like Harley to do right now is take it from, just give us a little recap from December 18th, 2019, when Mr. Davlin sent the letter to Rich Constantine, till now.
there you go.
Okay. It's like the Gaza Strip to me.
Well, that's why I wanted to show that picture.
So the property prior to it being purchased by Mr. Davlin, he reached out and spoke with Rich Constantine regarding his proposed use on the site. And in a letter described his proposed use. Rich responded in a letter, both of which are in the application, that if it was an agricultural use, that it would be permissible per ORC, but that if at any time it was determined that the use of the property was for a landscape business headquarters, that the permissibility of the use would need to be reevaluated. And so they moved forward, Mr. Davlin moved forward with purchasing the property, all parties with the understanding that the use of the property would be an agricultural use. Since that time, we have received quite a few complaints from those on Manhattan Parkway regarding noise, and then the property owner to the north who sold his home. And so because of those complaints, we spent time investigating the property. We met on site with Mr. Davlin, explained what the issues were, what needed to be corrected, and we conducted inspections for about a year and a half to give Mr. Davlin ample time to establish his use and to show us that, you know, all of those aspects of, you know, what was being utilized on the property for the landscape company would need to be removed, and that he would need to establish his agricultural use. And we met several times on the property with Mr. Davlin to discuss them, to go over the things that needed to be removed. That was going well for a little bit. We did see at one point Mr. Davlin had added some pots, a couple rows of pots. Right here, you can actually sort of see them, but I mean, again, this is a minuscule amount of the property. There was nothing but chopped wood stored in here, and then some equipment, which we have photos of in the package as well. These plants were there during the summer season. They stayed and then they died, which is also in the package that there's photos in the package as well. So due to all of this and these conditions not changing, actually only worsening, especially as, you know, all of this activity happening within the front setback, we filed a violation case with the municipal courts.
And that's sitting in the court right now.
That is
correct?
sitting in the court right now, yes.
Okay.
It is currently pending this or any other administrative remedies the applicant chooses to exhaust.
It sounds to me like the township has done their due diligence trying to make this work. Is that correct?
I would say so, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else, sir?
Well, the problem with the property is that I was led to believe that there was running water on the property that wasn't. So in the last year, I've been working on the well system. That's why those plants died, and not all of them died, some of them did. And so I've done an improvement on the ability to water plant material as I put it in. And we have done some electrical that was necessary for heaters and such. And then we are looking to expand each year, but because of COVID and my health conditions and my age, it's been slow, but we are now at the turning point. The landscape business will decline. The landscape business or the lawn mowing business has been sold, so that's going to be eliminated. The equipment that is there will be used to maintain that property and to transport material. I would have liked to have done that remodeling and installation earlier, and that will be the case. But right now it's baby steps.
Because I'm looking at your application for your variance from 2020, and you had in your handwriting, "We will install city water and sewer from front of the property." That still hasn't happened. 4 years.
It has not happened because.
And I think if I had an agricultural business, what's the first thing you need? Water.
That has a well on the property, and I got a.
Well, your intention was to install city water, and you never did it.
No, I didn't.
So, okay. All right. Anyone else to speak in favor of the request? Anyone to speak against the request? Sir, anything?
Nothing right now.
I want to clarify something. You said your name is on a letter. Are you aware what the letter says that you?
I wrote it briefly on the plan.
Okay. You want to read it down?
I live next door to 500 Park Road. I moved in 2022 and I love it on this street. I know that 500 Park Road is looking to extend the conditional use. The landscape nursery is seasonal and fits in with the nurseries in the area. We are in favor of what they are doing. It says we, your family,
I'm the only one.
so it should say I then, I guess. I am in favor of what they are doing with the horticultural scope of the business. We see not objection to having them continue.
Okay. And just so you know, you signed that.
You printed.
Printed it.
I printed. I wasn't really sure what was going on.
Okay.
Would you like me to see?
Pardon?
Would you like me to see?
It's only if you have something to say. You know, the protocol in a meeting like this, when a variance comes up, you ask for people to speak in favor of it. Once those people have spoken, then you ask for people to speak that are not in favor of it. And so if that's what your case is and you want to speak, or if you want to speak in favor, you can take the stand. Yeah, you signed in. So it's up to you if you want to do it.
I'm just kind of summarizing it.
Okay. Well, nothing you said right now is in the record. Is that correct, Mandy?
Well, it's all recorded, but it's not sworn testimony.
It's not sworn testament. Okay. Okay. No one else to speak of anything? I guess I just have a problem. We grant something to somebody 4 years ago. The property is zoned R1. It's not zoned nursery land, it's zoned R1 as the property on either side of it. You wrote a letter to our zoning inspector at the time. They monitored what you were doing, he answered your letter. And from what I've seen, the property is a disaster. And in fairness, this is just me speaking, in fairness to the rest of the township, something's gotta be done about it. You were given a chance, so at this time, I'm just gonna ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you haven't closed the public session yet, right? Am I entitled to one more?
You're entitled to
Okay,
it.
thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I would only submit that if the board is inclined to deny the use variance, if the board would consider any limiting factors or otherwise, whether it's some improvements to the property, whether it's a time period, as Mr. Daddle indicated, his health and his age and everything else is a compounding factor here that he's not expecting to be there in perpetuity for sure. I would just request that I know zoning boards of appeals certainly have some latitude to consider other options, whether that be you name it, fencing, sheds, barns, or a prescribed time period by which to get in compliance or otherwise. That would be our other request, and thank you.
Do we have that, or does that go under conditional use permit, Mandy?
I mean, look, I think one of the big issues is that he's using this as basically a dumping ground, right? Like, there's the issue with the used landscaping material being dumped there, the decking, there is a way to grant this variance and limit it, and not to exclude those sorts of things. But the problem with doing that now is that those things are there. So that would all have to.
They're there, and there's a case in court right now, too, correct?
Yeah. But I think that is probably the township's biggest issue is the condition. I mean, this isn't, the variance is one thing, but the condition in which this is kept, I think, is the biggest problem here. And I think there could be a way to grant a variance if this wasn't, this wasn't a dumping ground.
I would say if this just came up, I might go along with that, but the township has been chasing you for a long time.
I disagree with that. Harley, I haven't talked to Harley in more than a year. And Sean, I did talk to him, but I think only once. Sean, is that correct? Once.
Once without Harley, yeah. Because when I originally started, I was like a puppy. I have no idea what I was doing in zoning. So
it isn't that I am, I'm coming out of COVID. I am correcting a few problems with the property, and my intention is to grow on that property like a nursery. That material won't come in because I'm decreasing. The lawn maintenance business is gone, and the landscape business will be gone. And so therefore, decreasing that is going to allow me to spend more time, and I want to do it through my retirement of propagating and maintaining nursery stock on that property.
But you don't need a variance for that agricultural use.
If it's deemed agricultural, no, section 519 says you don't need it, and our board can't do anything about it.
So what you're talking about transitioning into, you wouldn't need a variance. What you need a variance for is all this equipment for the landscaping business that's stored there. And right now what you're asking for is for a variance for you to also dump this used decking and used landscaping rock and, bricks and things like that. That's what you guys are determining.
Correct. And it's my feeling, if this is the way you really want to go and pursue the agricultural thing, I would like to move on the variance now. If it's denied, then it's denied. You can't do anything with the it's going to force you to clean that property up.
Absolutely, I agree.
But then if you do pursue the agricultural and you fall within the realms of the state of Ohio 519, zoning board, nobody can touch you. I mean, agricultural, you do not need any zoning permits for that.
Okay.
But I think we've been taken advantage of for the last 4 years.
Not under the circumstances that I've been under, so.
The fact remains there's a piece of property there that looks awful.
Well, I agree. At that particular time when that picture was taken, it's improved, and
we were there yesterday.
Pardon me?
I was there yesterday for a drive-by. I didn't pull in, but it's
I was afraid to pull in.
it's pretty messy. I mean, I don't know what it was like when the picture was taken compared to what I saw it when I was there, but it's, you know, part of what we need to look at is people that live in the vicinity are affected by the property value that they're, you know, people drive down and go, wow, they're dumping stuff here, and you know, this is supposed to be a residential area. You know, I saw the nurseries as we were going by, nice, neat rows, everything looks good. Neighbors aren't going to complain about that. It's not deteriorating from, you know, the look, but
I can
you
be
know,
honest,
you can't argue that it is a mess.
it's you know winter, the fall, the winter, and now we're going to a cleanup and production because of the landscape business is declining in the amount that we're going to do. So that's what I'm looking for is more time to get it cleaned up.
Well, it's going to take some time to get it cleaned up, regardless of whether we pass this or don't. I mean, the idea is that you'll start cleaning and stop adding to the issue, and I think that's why it's sitting in front of us here. I was reading a letter that Rich and you communicated early before you even purchased, I believe. It says if in the future it would appear that your main use of the property is for headquartering a landscape service provider and the agricultural use is minuscule, your use of residential zone property may be reevaluated with regard to permissibility, which is where we're sitting at right now.
Okay.
You know, and I think he was pretty clear going into it.
And I'm explaining to you, I sold the lawn mowing business,
Right.
which was 6 trailers or so, and then the landscape business will decline, and it'll be throughout this year because I don't have the staff, I don't have the employees, and the 1 or 2 employees that I would have to promote the landscape business, those will be the only employees that I will have rather than 10. And so, you know, what I'm saying is that, you know, I'm not going to reopen the landscape business. I'm not going to perpetuate the lawn mowing business. I'm closing them down, and we'll continue with the development of nursery stock.
Well, again, we're voting on a variance to take an R1 zone piece of property and put a landscape company headquarters in it.
I don't know if that was a misrepresentation of what we're filing. You know, my intention is growing, you know, the nursery business. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, as they've indicated, the nursery business exists. If it's solely a nursery, then there's no issue, right? So our use variance is to allow for the use and the storage of all those products and materials that are on the premises now, including the equipment, trailers, and otherwise that are used not only for the nursery but also in conjunction with.
He
the
does what he's
landscape.
supposed to do. He's satisfying the state, not us.
Correct.
Right now, I mean, we could go on forever with what we're doing right now. You know, I'd like to see somebody build a business. You had COVID and you had those things, but right now the place is a mess. You want to put a landscape company headquarters out there, and I'm not sure we want to do that. I mean, if you really say what you want to do and you're going to go clean that property up, you clean it up. You don't even need to talk to us to make it an agricultural use. You know, put your work in, you know, where your talk is and see what happens.
And especially since you're this whole year or a year from now, you're planning on stopping the landscaping business and go completely nursery.
Right.
So, I mean, that would say it would be more beneficial just to keep it zoned as a nursery.
That's really the intention of what we want. I thought that you were talking about stopping everything, and that's not really the case.
Well, that's going to be up to the court from what I understand. I don't know. Again, board, we're looking at what's in front of us. Request permit to be used as a landscape company headquarters, which is in violation of section 1401 in our R1 district. Anything else, sir?
Well, I would only say that our application, I don't see in our application where we say that it's a landscape company headquarters. But in fact, we're asking for a use variance consistent with the agricultural and other use of the property, as I've discussed with you tonight, as far as storage of some of these pieces of equipment, trailers, and the other products thereon.
Well, every one of us is sitting here with a variance certificate in front of us. The request is to permit the current utilization of property zoned R1 to be used as a landscape company headquarters.
And the
Yes.
application itself is the second sheet of that, but again, the use variance wouldn't be necessary if it was agriculturally exempt, which I have determined it is not, hence the reason for the violation. And I mean, the list of business activities on the site, such as creating mulch, storing this debris, selling mulch from the property, those things are a commercial landscape company component. So the use variance would be for those uses specifically. Otherwise, a use variance wouldn't be necessary if it was just agriculture. So that
Correct,
is
correct.
why the use variance language is the way that it is.
And Ms. DeLeon is correct in part, but I just want to submit to you that our application in no way says this is the intention to headquarter a landscape company there. It's not our intention. Landscape company is headquartered in Mentor as it's domiciled, registered with the state of Ohio, and statutory agent and otherwise.
So what is your request?
So our request is that my understanding and part of the zoning violation of what exists here is that there are trailers, there are tractors, there are components of a landscape operation that are present on the property. But there's no intention to headquarter a landscape company on that property. However, the uses that are commensurate with the agricultural use, the propagation and the growing, which also serve the landscape company, and which allow for some of these pieces of landscape material and otherwise, and be it timber and some of these things that are, again, aligned with the agricultural use, but are also used for for landscape purposes, is to allow those things to remain on the property as they are.
So the landscape headquarters is 6891 Sutherland.
Mm-hmm. If I may approach, Mr. Chairman, I can provide you with the document evidencing that.
That's the landscape headquarters
Yes, sir.
in a house.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So that's where the main office is out of.
That's where the billing and the invoicing comes from.
So what you want to do is landscaping and agriculture on this piece of property.
And I am declining, the size of it, the lawn mowing, which was a big part of it, that's gone, yes.
I understand that's gone, but what my question is, you want to intertwine the landscaping and the agriculture on this piece of property.
Originally I did, because I didn't have any idea that I would be reducing it like I am. And it all deals with agricultural products. I'm not doing welding there or anything else commercial. It's all agricultural products. Even the soil is an agricultural product.
But in 4 years, you sold a few arborvitae or something, agricultural products.
$2,500 a year. But the thing about it is that it is a slow process, and I will have more time now to dedicate to the cleanup and doing.
But you see, all of that stuff doesn't need a variance.
I know.
You planting bushes and doing agricultural work is where you should be doing.
Which is why we've asked in the alternative,
Well, I'm
at
not
least to
trying to-
consider a time period.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the variance you're requesting is. And it sounds like you want to be able to do like log splitting and mulching and selling items that are, I guess,
Commercial.
yeah. I mean, it's not, in my mind, agricultural to split wood. I know it's growing, and it was growing, and you cut it and split it, but I think it's a stretch to call that, at least in our area, most agricultural uses like this are nurseries, and they're growing plants.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the work that you're doing there seems to be messy in and of itself. It's not just because it's wet and it's because the work is you're dragging in logs and cutting them up, and you know, there's noise with the chainsaws, and I think Rich was pretty clear when you went to purchase the place on what could be done and what couldn't be done, and yet a lot of what couldn't be done is being done, and that's why we're visiting this.
I think it is good to visit it, but, you know, we have to work out some conditions in that, I would hope, and, you know, you will see progress in the future.
So just so I'm correct, so you're not looking for this to be a landscape company.
No.
So you are
But he wants to do commercial business out of there.
right, but that's not what this.
We want to
variance
store and
certificate is
allow
even
for
about.
those things to be present on the property. But the
So
business
the
will
loft
operate
thing,
separately.
that
Well,
would be storage.
yeah, part and parcel of that, if he's timbering, you know, if there's timbering lumber on the property and then cutting it up and doing it, you know, I'll give you probably a bad example. If you ever drive down Morley Road in Concord Township, if you head just south from 44 and you see the gentleman on the left with all the wood piled everywhere, you know, he's got a variance for that because he's got two streams that converge there. And all these things come from there, and he harvests all that wood. Similar here. What he's suggesting is he wants to harvest what's on that property as an agricultural use and also use it for a landscape business. But with that, and part and parcel of that, the requested use variance is to allow the trailers, the equipment, those implements, and some of those products to be stored there, whether it's pavers or otherwise part of landscape business. However, the landscape business at no time will be headquartered there. The landscape business is headquartered, and it's a home, like many home businesses are headquartered in a home with the operations of it.
So then if this variance was written without headquarters, it just said used as a landscape company, that would be what you're requesting?
I haven't seen what you're referring to. I'm sorry. Maybe it was in the packet provided to all of you, but that's not what
I
we
don't
submitted.
think we make these up. They
I didn't submit.
The application itself is the second sheet, but I really think headquartered is just semantics at this point. I don't think ORC has a definition for headquartered, so I think that the language on there suits it, whether it's a headquartered.
And you can see on their application on page 204, they're asking for storage of nursery/agricultural/landscape equipment, vehicles, and materials.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This certificate was provided internally by Paisley Township. This was not our submission.
Yeah, that is the sheet that is produced once I process the application itself. But it wouldn't be appropriate to apply for a use variance
No.
for nursery. So it would be all of the components of the landscape company, which is a majority of the use on the property, if not all, at this time. I believe the entire use. I don't think that there's an agricultural use. There are no seedlings, nothing is growing on the property currently anyway. So all of it, well, I mean, it's winter, so nothing is growing. In addition, I would assume that you're still storing equipment and wood inside your, what's the name of those houses?
Quonset
Thank you.
house.
That's all, right, that's all the same equipment and wood being stored in there? Yeah, so at this time, it is my interpretation that the sole use of the property is for a landscape company. And that's my interpretation. Hence
The way I see it, the bottom line is it's a company in Mentor, and he works out of his home. That's his home port, and he's picked a lot in Painesville Township that's zoned R1 and storing all his stuff out in Painesville Township.
Yeah, and that is where all of the employees
I understand that.
go to in order to, they park, they grab whatever landscape trucks or whatever, and so it is the headquarters. That's where the employees report to,
Right.
work out from,
Is
and
there-
that's where all of the equipment and everything is located. So I would just argue that that's semantics, and maybe I'm wrong, Mandy, please correct me if I am, but I don't think that the request is wrong. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah,
No.
and I think with all due, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, what you are asking for is for a variance to store landscaping equipment and the materials and the vehicles associated with that landscaping company. They're not asking to have it headquartered there, but are you still producing mulch at that facility too?
We will, with that storage of material, and that is a possibility that would be phased out too.
And there's the issue though also of the storage of used materials that I think this is a big issue I think for the township as well. Is this rubbish that's discard from these landscaping projects that are
Mhm.
also stored there? They would need a variance for that.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody would be happy to live next to that, but again, that's my opinion. But I mean,
In order to not be in violation, they would have to have approval to store that used landscaping material too.
And that's the sole matter we're seeking. We're not taking issue with Ms. DeLeon's interpretation. We've not filed an appeal based upon any determination she's made. It's simply as Ms. Quartz has stated, that's the basis of why we're here. So I'm sorry, forgive me, I didn't, until I pulled it out of my file, I didn't see this first page. I couldn't figure out why we were talking about headquarters. That was not part of our submission. But thank you, Ms. Quartz.
The fact that the lawn mowing business is now gone within a day or so, and then the landscape business will decline also. We will clean up all the materials, and we will produce some mulch from that material. That's what it is, and that would be done with that. That won't accumulate because the vehicle that put it there is no longer there. No landscape company, landscape company, and no lawn mowing company. Just the agricultural growing of the plant material that we plan to sell.
So you plan to sell, let's say in 2 years, your landscape will be phased out,
Right,
and you're going to be completely nursery
right.
and mulching.
I would think that the mulching could disappear because we won't have the feedstock to do that.
And when you make mulch, is that just like a
You're using
chipper?
a tub grinder?
Top grinder.
Those things are very loud.
No, they aren't. This one is a 950. It's about like a tractor running. It isn't a 3000 or something that does tremendous volumes. It's almost, it is very small compared to tub grinder.
Is that tub grinder on the property?
Yes. Well, actually, it's having a clutch replaced, and we'll be there Thursday, I think. So, I don't want to misrepresent what the property is going to be. And I have talked to Harley a few years back and told her, I'm 72 years old. I'm not going to continue on. And it will revert back. Once that is, I wouldn't expect even the agricultural use, it would be considered residential. And if I sold the property, that's what it would become. That agriculture would disappear by a new owner. I talked to my counsel, and he said, yeah, that sounds right. So what we're really looking for, if you'll stick with me for this next year or a few years, the situation that you pointed out will be cleaned up.
Well, we gave you a chance 4 years ago. First time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. That's the way I look at things.
You wouldn't feel that way because that won't be.
Well, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've seen it happen.
Yeah, but then COVID.
And I've been involved with tub grinders. I don't know, that's way before your time. People came in with skeleton outfits and everything else on. So I think we've heard. Are there any other questions from the board?
No, but when we get ready to make our motion, we need to change because it says in here that it's headquarters. I think if we just change it to storage
Do we need to
land,
change the wording?
I think you guys should. I think you guys should stick to what the application asked for. And also, if you would like to consider, the storage of the discarded landscaping materials as part of the variance as well. But this is on page 204 of their application.
I don't have that one for some reason.
And if it helps, to the extent that the board's willing to consider, we would amend our application to include what Ms. Gert stated as far as the storages of discarded landscape materials.
And, that's kind of a question. If there's no landscaping, and it's gonna be dissolved over the next year, there's no material coming in. You see?
But it's there now.
It is there now.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
That's why he's in court.
And
That's
that-
exactly right. That's why it's there now. If you, all right, let's what's the wording? I don't think I have that on my second page.
And the only thing I would suggest adding to that, when you make your motion, is that also including adding discarded landscaping materials.
Well, I can't make the motion, so you're the guy.
I'll make the motion to approve variance certificate 2024-0004, which with the description of storage of nursery, agricultural, landscape equipment, vehicles, and materials, and
Discarded
landscape materials.
Okay, motion's been made.
I'll second that.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Rachel, if you call the roll, please.
Okay, Dave Lindros,
No.
Dale Lewis.
No.
And Chairman.
No. Okay,
Thank you for your time.
okay, thank you. Yeah, you're from the gas station? Okay, we voted to continue yours, but if you wanna go through with it now, we can do it. Okay, I buried your application, let me find it again here. Rachel, if you will read the application, please.
Okay, applicant Mohammed Qatari, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, submitted a conditional use application for property located at 1435 Manor Avenue. The request is for a drive-through and outdoor storage of propane, ice, and U-Haul rental vehicles.
Eliminating the drive-through component.
That makes things
I
a
had
lot more
questions,
simple.
Yeah.
Where were you driving through?
All right, so I find no error in our zoning inspector requiring a conditional use permit. If you'd just like to tell us what you want to do.
Okay, this station I just bought it in October, so I have no idea what's going on between the old owners, all of them, and the city. Nobody told me anything. So when I came in, I know everything is good to go. When they came in, they told me you can do this, you can do this, you have to apply for this, you have to apply for the permit for the propane tank, and ice box, and the U-Haul. And the U-Haul, he never mentioned anything to me.
Well, let's see if we can walk you through and make it a little easier, and you can ask some questions. First of all, U-Hauls. How many do you plan to have there?
U-Haul, I requested 2 from them only.
Only 2, and they'll be parked in the back where you have them now.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's more than 2 now.
There's more than 2. There's 3 or 4 there now.
No, there's 2.
Sir,
There's the 3
we need
now.
swearman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you state your first and last name again, please?
Mohammed Katrawi.
What you're about to tell the board, do you swear or affirm that what you're about to tell them will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so it comes to how many are there now? I thought I
Last
saw
time I
3.
drove by, it was 3, but. that was
3, yeah.
it. So,
But we have, from the company itself, we have 2.
Yeah.
But when they return, their returns, like when somebody can bring a U-Haul from out of state, he return it.
so how
And
many,
within a week, they have to transfer it from our lot.
so,
They used to get trailers. We're not allowed trailers anymore for the parking lot. I told him already we don't have any trailers. We can't fit any trailers, and we can't get any more than 4 trucks in the lot because we don't have space for it. And within a week, they have to transfer 2 of them if we have.
So what you're saying is you're only going to handle 2, but you could have up to 4 at any one time.
4, but they have to stay. They can't stay more than a week.
Okay.
No, this is the lot, right?
Yeah.
It just seems like it ought to have some.
Yeah, because they have a bigger U-Haul, which the bigger U-Haul would not allow in our lot.
That's just grass they're parked on now?
Yes.
Which we did talk about.
Yes.
That was a part of the conditional use permit issued to the last owner, was that if they're parking the U-Hauls, that they have to be on the paved surface. So,
You own that property that they're parked now. Would you have a problem paving that?
I asked a company now. They said they're closed. They can't pave
Because it's
anything.
cold.
Yeah.
But I called a company and they said they can't do anything right now.
But you'd be okay if we put that as a condition?
For U-Haul, for now, if we have to, there is a space to park 2 U-Haul on paved lot, by the way.
Oh.
Since we have a 15 and a 10.
Yeah.
A 10.
But I mean,
If we have 4, we're not gonna have space. Then we have to pave it. That's correct.
So if we put a condition, if you have 4 trucks, 2 on your already paved and 2 on a section that you would pave.
If you give me for more than a week, if they stay for more than a week in my lot, yes, I have to pay. I have to pave it.
Okay.
But for 2, we have space for 2 to be paved, because the dumpster, we're gonna put it back next to the building since we're removing, we're canceling the drive-through. And now I'm doing a lot of improvement for the property anyway, from the inside and outside and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you are planning on
I'm not
paving it?
against the city, honestly. I'm not against the community. I'm with everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
You're just trying to figure out what you need to do.
But I did not know that he is in a big mess.
Yeah.
Not just he's just a liar. Honestly. Like, let me say, like, this is the honesty. He is a liar for the business, for how he worked with the companies, how, like, a lot of stuff I went through because he lied.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you want to work with us, and we want to work with you.
I'm working with you.
All right. So that's the U-Haul, right? And then where do you want to put the propane and the ice?
They're already next to far away from the
Oh,
street.
is that the propane there?
they're over here along this wall, right?
Okay, I didn't go around that side.
They're far away from the street.
And that was the
they're far away.
location that they were in when you purchased the
Yeah.
property, right? Yeah, there was a conditional use for both of those as well.
The ice is over there as well.
Yeah. The ice and the propane tank were there when I took over, and he had a permit, I think. She told me.
Yeah.
And I'm just renewing the permit.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Okay.
And he got inspected, which is good, from the city and the building department on August 31st. He got passed for everything.
Okay. All right.
That's I see it.
We just want to get you compliant then. Any other questions?
No.
Any other
Do we need
problems?
to do this formal thing or just approve the renewal?
This isn't this is his formal conditional use
He
permit
said renewal.
under a new country, isn't it?
So since
Yeah,
you
because
so
it's
it's
a
called
brand
new
new?
owner, because it's a new owner, it's a new conditional use permit, because it follows the applicant, not
So
the.
then we should
the property.
probably add the part about the paving then.
Yeah.
As a condition.
So since you called the paving company, you plan on getting it paved?
If U-Haul, okay, let's do it like this. If U-Haul was worth it to keep it for the business, then I'm gonna pave it. If not, then I'm gonna either keep it on 2 trucks or kick it out. Honestly.
Gotcha.
So
So for now, I don't know if U-Haul worth it or not because it's winter time. So we're not renting a lot of U-Haul. But in the summertime, I don't know. If it was good, then I'm planning to keep the U-Haul. And if you go to the station now, you will see that I added a kitchen. Cost me maybe $60,000 just for a kitchen. In this way, so I can get rid of the U-Haul and the drive-through. I don't have to worry about those, honestly. But if the U-Haul was good, no, I'm gonna keep it because that's gonna help the business for success. Honestly.
So if you do obtain four trucks,
But I'm not doing 4 trucks. No matter what, I'm not doing 4 trucks. I'm doing 2.
Two, but what we're saying is, you say that you may have 4 there at
If
some time.
there is a return, we can take up to 4, but he has a week either to rent them and kick them out the lot or to transfer them from our lot to somebody else's lot.
But theoretically, there could be 2 trucks parked on the grass and 2 trucks on the pavement.
Right now we have 1 truck, by the way, in our name.
Right.
The other trucks, they're not in our name. They're returns. So whenever either they rent it or they transfer it. But we have 1 truck in the facility.
How long do you think you're gonna know before you're gonna keep U-Haul? You say through the summer?
Through the summer, yeah.
Would that be a problem, putting a condition on it, say if they decide to keep it in the fall, they have to pay for 2 more trucks?
That wouldn't be an issue for me.
You don't know what I'm saying? If they decide to keep it,
Yeah, if they.
there's no sense having them do it now if they're not gonna keep U-Haul. But if they do keep it,
But the thing is, either you see the lot, how big is the lot? I got even a company to to clear all the wood stuff, clean it, and make it look nice. And even I'm trying to get more like benches, stuff like that for people just so they can sound stuff. So I'm trying to do
sure, I understand.
good stuff to make it look good, look nice, and benefit the business more.
You understand what we're talking about now, though,
I
right?
came from Cleveland anyway, so Cleveland, honestly, they don't have any of that. You can put whatever you want. You can do whatever you want because it's mess. So coming from Cleveland to here and see the difference between there and here, it's just it needs time. But I'm working.
so would you be in favor of if throughout the summer, if the U-Haul works out for you well, then after that, and if you decide to keep U-Haul, then you'll put paving in.
Yeah, if I decided to keep U-Haul for 4 trucks, I'm gonna pave it.
Oh, so 4 trucks that would be in your name.
Yes.
And then how many would you be able to?
2 trucks. Honestly, it's no point to pave it because I'm not gonna use it.
But you say you could have 4 trucks at any one time.
Well, that's the thing. When you have the
They have a week to transfer.
Yeah, but you could have
That's the thing.
that could be a constant
Yeah,
thing.
there could be a kind. One comes in and one goes out. One comes in, one goes out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but from our standpoint, the trucks are on the grass relatively consistently.
If you move the truck to the front, since we have a 10 feet and 15 feet, they fit.
And that's fine, as long as that's where they're parked consistently.
Yes.
But you do also need those spaces for your customers.
We have 2 on the each side.
Yeah.
Since we're
So,
moving the truck
but if it wasn't an issue, they would be on the asphalt right now. They're on the grass right now, currently, right?
Yeah, because we have a drive-through still open.
Yeah. So, I will say it has been a consistent issue in the years past. I would say, even if you are just going to keep the 2 trucks, that come fall, if you decide to keep it, I think that a condition should be made to pave it.
If you're going to do it for a long period of time, you're not going to want to be in a muddy mess there anyway.
Yeah,
So you're going to have to put something down.
So
So
even if it's just 2, though.
how about if we give you a year, and if you're still doing the U-Haul in a year, then you'll get paving.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah, we good with that.
That work for you guys?
Yeah.
I'm with that. It was good.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that works.
This way, at least you give me like some time to make some.
Well,
money.
then you can decide whether it's going to be, if you're going to make money or not. If you're not, you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I will
But
say
it wouldn't hurt to have a little more parking, even if you decided to get out of the U-Haul business. Have a little more asphalt. So you might consider getting a bid to do a little bit more work, and have a little more place for people to pull in. That's always been a problem there. It's a nice little location.
Yeah, that I'm gonna go in that mess.
But and to be fair, the applicant has put a significant amount of
Oh,
money.
yeah, and I
invested
think
into
it's fair
the
for us to give them a little
business.
time to
Sure.
make a decision, huh?
Okay.
Looks nice in there.
We gave that,
I think I've
landscape
seen
guy,
it over there.
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
we gave the landscape guy 3 years, we can give this guy a year.
Yeah.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion, please?
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve 2024-0001 with taking out the drive-through. No drive-through is going to happen, and to have outdoor storage of propane, ice, and U-Haul rental vehicles, with the condition that if you do decide to keep the U-Hauls after 1 year, that you would have to pave parking area for them.
For more than 2 trucks.
I mean, if it's just no, because if you keep 2, you'll get 2 more.
No, if I keep 2 and I don't pave it, I promise you, there's 2 only that's gonna be in the lots. No more than 2.
No more than 2.
Because I'm gonna kick everybody to go park different ways, not in my station. But if the U-Haul was good and make good money, and I decided to keep 4, then I will pave it.
Because the issue is having 2 in your name, and then you could have 2 in other people's name come on to.
No, they can't do that. No, it's 1 account. You don't have 2 accounts.
Oh, but when they drop off, it's
Yeah.
But I'm saying for the
drop
drop-offs.
we control in the drop off. So if somebody came to drop it off, we can say no, go drop it off somewhere else.
Okay.
Like the trailers. The trailers, what I told them, I don't have space for trailers, and I can't get trailers because we're not trained for it. So now they can't bring any trailers for us.
So the U-Hauls, if you do decide to keep 2, you will keep them in the parking lot,
That's
not in the grass,
Yes.
and you'll turn away any returns.
Yes. That's
Dave,
what
maybe
we're
we
doing.
could just
They,
raise
I
it so that
usually
if
send
he's
them.
in the U-Haul business in a year, they will always be parked on asphalt, let him deal
Yeah.
with where it goes. And not
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So if you're in the U-Haul business for a year,
So yeah, just
and you
make it-
decide to keep,
It's either I pave it, make it look nicer, better.
well, regardless of how many you have, which
They will be
they'll
parked on. They will be
asphalt.
parked on asphalt.
okay, so if you do continue in the U-Haul business after 1 year, or no matter when, as long as they're all parked on pavement.
Gotcha.
Does that sound about right?
This is better.
Okay. The motion has been made.
Just wanted to add, I'm sorry.
Keep
If-
that, honey.
With the condition that he can have as many as he wants as long as it's on the asphalt, that could potentially negatively affect
No
the
more than
required
4.
amount of parking spaces that customers would have to have. So allowing,
No more than 4, honey. Good for you.
yeah, that would
Write
be
it down.
no
No
more than
more.
4. I like that.
No more than
Okay.
4 trucks,
But-
no matter what, over 10 years.
We can only go 5.
Go 5 years.
Yeah, you
So
have to
with-
come and see us
With
again
no
in
more
August.
than 4 trucks.
Yeah, just make it happy.
So, U-Hauls on the pavement with no more than 4 trucks.
Yes.
Poor Rachel. I'm sorry.
Guys, test me.
Got your eraser out over there, Rachel.
And the max time we're allowed is a 5-year conditional use. So would you like the max, or do you want to just go 1 year?
Whatever you want, guys. I don't like problems. I'm a peaceful guy.
We can grant the conditional use permit for a period of 5 years, but the parking falls within the first year.
Oh, okay.
So the storage of the propane, the ice, and the U-Hauls,
5 years.
you don't need to come back in 5 years if everything is moving along smoothly.
Okay, with the
Okay,
5
Rachel, you want to try that?
For a 5-year term?
Yeah.
Okay.
After she reads it back, you can second it, Dale.
All right.
Okay, so no drive-through, outdoor storage of propane, ice, and U-Haul vehicles. U-Hauls have to be on the pavement, and no more than 4 U-Haul vehicles for a 5-year term.
A U-Haul for 1 year, we said.
The term is for all of it for 5
Yeah, I
years.
got you.
Pavement for 1 year.
No, not pavement. No. They're not doing the pavement condition.
No, with the U-Hauls, within a year, if he still has the U-Haul business, the 4 trucks have to be on pavement.
On paved.
Then let him worry about how he does it,
So he's got a year to figure it out for the 4 trucks. If that makes
provided
sense.
he keeps parking legal. Right?
Keep them on the asphalt the whole year.
So we're not putting the U-Hauls on the pavement?
Yes, the U-Hauls on pavement, we're not requiring him to pave.
And then no more than 4 U-Hauls?
No more than 4.
Yeah, parked on asphalt, yes.
No more than 4 U-Hauls parked on asphalt? Okay. Okay.
And none on the grass.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a year to play with.
Well,
A year.
technically it's a zoning violation if you park on the grass.
How we already made a deal.
No. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
I
No,
appreciate that.
but I said already. I said I need time to make money so I can pay it. That's not cheap.
Yeah.
But you said you have parking for the U-Hauls on the pavement now, right?
For 2,
Yeah.
not for 4.
Yeah. So as long as you park those 2 on the pavement, you're good.
It looks like I'm gonna see you every day.
So that
All right,
was,
you got it, Dale?
Yeah, leave me to the summer.
I'll second it.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Rachel, if you'll call the roll, please.
Okay, Dave Lindros,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
and Chairman.
Yes.
Doesn't take long to call the roll.
No. Okay.
Done?
Done.
I'm gonna say my opinion for the other guy if he was here.
Yeah.
He's a mess.
It tells you what happens
He
if
doesn't know
you.
what he wants, and he doesn't know what he needs, and he doesn't know what to do.
All he did is he left a footprint.
He just wants to keep doing what he's doing, is what it is.
No, but it doesn't work. If you are in a residential area, you can't just put a business